All right, Adam, day 3 of camp, and this was a defense day. We had defensive interviews. We did talk to Coach Durrell, but you and I, between us, talked to a bunch of DBs. So we're going to talk about the DB group a lot this year today. And just start off, Carl Durrell mentioned both safety and corner. They're much deeper now than they were a year ago.
And I think we talked about Chris Miller the other day, the fact that he's back in the mix. Carl Durrell said he's not ready for contact. And I think you maybe want to go through most of camp with Chris Miller not in contact, just to make sure he's part of this group. If they have injuries at quarterback, obviously you're in big trouble. You've only got 2 guys that you really would feel comfortable putting out there.
Yeah.
The other spot I look to with a little bit of concern in terms of depth is safety.
Right.
They were going to bring in a Tanza Vangar from TCU. That didn't work out. He's now at South Alabama. Couldn't get in here apparently. So that's a spot. You start getting injuries at safety, you worry a little bit. I talked to Trustin Oliver today. He's a guy that comes in after spending a little time at the junior college level. Wasn't able actually to play there. He redshirted his first year, and then because of COVID, they didn't have a season last year. You're going to rely on maybe a Trustin Oliver to be an important depth piece for the team this year. Trevor Woods comes in as a true freshman. Is he ready to go? That's one spot that you can't afford a lot of injuries, but Trustin Oliver was a cool journey that he went on. And you always hear from those guys that went JUCO. It humbles them because they don't have the resources. Trustin Oliver looks really good physically. He said he didn't have anything else to do being in the middle of nowhere, so he just kind of hung out in the weight room, and you can see it paid off for him.
Yeah, and speaking of that safety group, who else looks really good physically is Mark Perry, who I talked to. Just looks like a more mature person, and obviously he's 2 years older than when he first came in here, and we didn't see him a whole lot. We didn't see him in person at all last year. So really, he's 2 years older than the last time I saw him in person. So just looks better physically, and we know from the spring he was hard on himself, saying, "Hey, I didn't play very well." That's really been a motivating factor. He says, "I think about it every single day to motivate myself," and he said that safety group's coming along. He's playing some free safety right now, but they're mixing and matching and things like that. He looks pretty good. So. If these guys stay healthy, you look at Isaiah Lewis, Mark Perry, Chris Miller, Trustin Oliver, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, if these guys are healthy, that's not a bad safety group.
Don't forget about Curtis Appleton, too.
Right.
He got placed on scholarship. But with Mark Perry, I think that's a reminder that these kids need to develop a little bit. He turns down USC late in the recruiting process, puts together some really impressive 100-meter dash times his senior year of high school, comes in here, and he didn't play for most of the season, and then late in the year they put him in a role where he can pin his ears back. We've talked about this, and makes a couple sacks, and then everybody says, okay, sophomore Mark Perry, is he going to be an all-conference guy? It's no, you're now throwing him in the back end of the secondary where there's a lot more going on back there, and it took him some time. As fast as he is, if you're out there thinking you're not going to play fast, and I'm not to say that he played slow last year, but he just wasn't in a lot of plays last year, and so I'm really, make a list of top 5 guys. I'm anxious to see the jump they make from last year to this year, and I'm expecting them to. I think Mark Perry's high on that list.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Mark, he looks better, and he's one that I feel like needs to take a jump as well for this defense. At the cornerback spot, Mekhi Blackman missed a lot of spring, but he's back and he's in the mix now. Christian Gonzalez looks really good physically, and I think he's come up every single day in Durrell's comments. People ask about him, but he comes up all the time. I talked to Nigel Bethel, who's a guy that he's a veteran now, and he's bringing guys along. And he had a big interception last year against Arizona. He's a guy that all of a sudden could be a really key player on this team. He's playing a lot of outside when Mekhi goes into the nickel. So there's some depth here, and Carl Durrell mentioned, hey, our depth's actually not too bad now.
I was pleasantly surprised when the preseason All Pac-12 team came out and Mekhi Blackman was a second-team pick, because I really thought no one else had noticed how well he played. I mean, obviously you and a lot of CU fans as well, but just outside of Boulder, I thought he was a guy that just wasn't getting a whole lot of respect for as solid as he was. And we're out here waiting for practice to end because the air quality is so bad. We were inside today, and they're showing highlights of the Alamo Bowl, and I kind of joked, well, this is going to be a pretty short highlight reel, but they start showing plays at Mekhi Blackman and Christian Gonzalez. I mean, a couple of those plays were next-level plays, and that's huge for Gonzo to get that confidence going into this year. And we heard through the spring that he's a guy that's asserted himself more. The sky's the limit for him, and Mekhi Blackman's pretty solid there. Nigel Bethel, I think you feel really good about those three guys. It's beyond that, maybe some question marks, but those three guys provide you a pretty solid group at cornerback.
Yeah, Coach Terrell and Nigel Bethel, to me, both mentioned those three young freshmen, though, and that they're coming along. They're looking pretty good. So they look pretty solid at corner at this point. I personally feel like that's one of the more underrated spots on this team. Not that they're going to be – that's an amazing group. I think that it's not being talked about enough about how solid it is. I think that's going to be a pretty solid group. But a couple other notes. Coach Terrell mentioned the quarterbacks looked really good today.
That's, if you're a CU fan, that's what you want to hear every day.
Well, we got to have a quarterback update. Right?
We do, and it sounds like we're going to get more of an update on Sunday when they're available. My question, though, Brian, is if they have a miserable day, is Carl Durrell going to point that out?
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. But last year, Sam Neuer gets named the starting quarterback, and people are freaking out, and then he comes out against UCLA. So we're kind of guessing. We are going to get a chance to watch a scrimmage, but we're kind of having to lean on the coaches to be honest. I don't think Carl Durrell is a guy that blows a lot of smoke, but I can't wait to see it with my own eyes.
Right, I agree with you. A couple other notes. You asked about offensive linemen. Casey Roddick was just fully cleared right before camp, so he is healthy, but he's just kind of getting back in the mix. Who was the other offensive lineman? Oh, Chance Lytle.
Chance Lytle. He's back
and he's back and sort of limited, but those two guys looks like they're pretty much back, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, the big question then becomes, okay, Frank Phillips going to be out 2-3 games. Who's lining up at right tackle?
Yeah.
I would guess Jake Wiley's probably your most likely candidate there. Jared Lichtenhan got a ton of work this spring, but it seemed like he's a work in progress. So
I think Noah Fenske will be in that mix as well. To me, it's probably Wiley, Fenske, maybe Jared Christian Lichtenhan. I don't know, but Tank. But we'll see. I think it's probably one of those three. Don't you think?
Yeah, and thank goodness Max Ray transferred in, right? Otherwise, you'd really be worried about that group.
Right.
I'm anxious to see what Jake Wiley, if he does get the nod there, it looks like, because we have heard some positive things about him the last year.
He's grown a lot physically in the time he's gotten here as well. So, day 3 of camp, we got a lot to go. We're going to talk to the quarterbacks tomorrow. We'll be back to talk about it on Sunday.